I see myself as a choreographer, not necessarily a choreographer of human bodies, but of situations. I like to choreograph situations, situations which question existing orders and boundaries, things which have been seen as the norm. In the process, I play with fiction. The fiction is neither real nor fake, it is a set of possibilities. In the mid-1980s, Donna Haraway predicted in her essay A Cyborg Manifesto that hybridized beings called cyborgs would overcome fixed identities and discriminations based upon that. Cyborgs exceeding the rigid borders of human and machine, the nature and the artificial. This is one of the starting points of the live performance Say My Name, Say My Name. Artificial intelligence has no form, yet it is for me white, able-bodied cis male. It is a far away from the cyborgs being talked about. I'm interested in the in-betweens, the hybrids, the boundaries themselves than the space they divide. I'm interested in shapeshifters, goddesses, hybrids such as Lakshmi or Kumio, the nine-tailed fox, who have been appropriated by colonialism and patriarchy, but still survive through time, the ancestors and descendants of the cyborg. I'm interested in escaping the fetishization of an able-bodied, a normative human body transcending its borders. At the end of the performance, we hear the cyborg care workers, old and new, say, "We want to live in a world that is collaborative, a world that is emotionally intelligent, a world in which we are linked and not ranked." Thank you. And I'm excited to talk now with my colleagues Ian and Shumona.
Thank you. Wow. Um, yeah, really amazing to see your contributions. Um, it, I was really what was really striking for me right now to hear about AI and the body. I was I kind of was thinking about because I've been also researching a bit around people who are in a relationship with artificial intelligence, and I was and how they project feelings into the AI, and I was kind of, it made me thinking also just now that how the giving a body to an AI would also give them quite a lot of responsibility if a AI would receive a body or kind of like a burden as well. It's just kind of my association just now.
It's absolutely fabulous and very interesting what Shen you just said, and in the visual way, in visual arts, how we can convey these messages, your conviction. You are certainly of a lot of convictions, and but you are conveying it in a very poetical, very subtle way, and the what you say, it's very obvious that you are in between zones. You are not in right and wrong, not black and white. You are just trying to find out the intricate links between the topics, the contents, and the forms also. And the last thing you have just said, it's so important that you are interested in links, not in ranks. Not to be, we are supposed to be linked, not ranked. But that's the that's the ultimate goal. So yeah, it's really fantastic and looking forward to it. Yeah.
Thank you so much also for your contributions. Also within the theme of geographies, how to also see how different, I say, mediums now maybe, or in different genres it can be shown. And also I think there is a common interest which is being expressed also very differently, which I find quite interesting and inspirational. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, Shumona, yeah, what I was think, yeah, in your contribution, I was kind of, yeah, thinking of geography. You start kind of mapping a city, and then it kind of goes closer, and kind of it's kind of also a realization that you kind of end with your own body, and yeah, kind of just kind of, yeah, carrying, or the realization that you're carrying the geography with you, kind of. I found that really beautiful. This kind of, yeah, moment of realization as well.
Yeah. See, it's not a text which is independent itself. You know, it's an excerpt of a novel. So there is a whole story going on in this particular novel. So it's not just it's not film or performance, which is there is a beginning, middle, and end. It's not independent in that way. It can be tricky or difficult to understand it, why it's happening in the text right away. But in this particular excerpt and in this novel, and in general in on all my novels, what I try to do is to understand woman's position in society, to sum up woman's body, how it perceived. And when you talk about geography, it's our body is our own territory, it's our first land, it's our first country, so when you don't have the right to choose what you are supposed to do with your body, when there the social laws are imposed on your body, or on you, it becomes a conflictual relationship between you and the society. And that's what I try to show in my novels, that wherever in kind of a country like India, or in France, like very modern Western country, rules are the same. So um, the perception we have as a woman in the society, be it religious, be it capitalism, be it over liberalized society, it's as if I was subaltern as a woman. And when you are not a white woman, when you are non-white woman, it's like subaltern among the subalterns. So that what when she talk about the hierarchy, ranking, this ranking is there, and you feel this ranking all the time everywhere. So my woman character, almost is the same woman character who is roaming around in India, in Calcutta, in France, somewhere else. And I try to understand this permanent conflictual, not to be said violent, relationship between woman and the society, woman's body as is perceived by the others, the conception of me and the others, and it's genre, it's race, it's social class, not a class. I mean, there is lots of, we talk about class struggle, but this is also a struggle of genre and struggle of race. These all three elements are working, and not obviously in a positive, constructive way. We're always constructing the other. We are very much obsessed with the identity of what we are, and what specifically are not us, the concept of soi et autre, me and the other, the concept of others coming all the time. And I try to explore these questions.
I also found that the conflict within that character is already very present, to see how the perception is being seen, or what is expected of, as let's say a woman in this case, and how you deal with it, because it is a constant conflict of these. I mean, if you think of geographies, it's the relations, but also for me, in a way, although it's not cartography, I somehow have very much this strong image of cartography, of division, of borders, and then the expectation. And then also with Ian's film, what I find interesting is there is this massive tunnel, like it's massive, and in a way it feels like it's connecting the two parts between. But on the other hand, there has been also, and maybe I'm interpreting too much inside, but there has been the history of that you go explore, no, and then also to define the other side, or it's not, yeah, to define it and then also to trap it in a way. So I find that all interesting in all of the pieces, so to say, or works which have been shown.
Yeah. The first time I listened to the Jan, it was amazing, and how he uses all sort of forms, the visual, sound, and the conceptual way, and he conveys a very poetical message. It's I wouldn't say it's frontal, but it's very delicate kind of way, but it's very strong. How he conveys his message or messages rather. And even when we listen to him, I see this, he has filters, like, he has several filters, how he perceives the reality and how he conveys it back. So these filters are very artistic, and we can be very politically engaged without being partisan, so that's very delicate, and which is extremely important for us as a writer or artist, to have these delicacies, not to be frontal. Yeah, so I just love that about Jan.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this feeling of being trapped within kind of any kind of, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting thought, kind of, and I think it can also be applied to so many different kind of geographies as
Sure.
well. Kind of, but also on the other hand, I find it also interesting that kind of I myself try to kind of also always find out where I am, or kind of like try to define a point of reference. And I mean, just kind of thinking of like a conventional map of the world, I find it interesting that I always kind of tend to want to I kind of identify with the map as soon as I find a point of reference where I am at the moment. I find it kind of interesting how this kind of happens, and yeah, that I kind of unconsciously start identifying as soon as something kind of yeah, as soon as I find a point of reference where I think I belong, but it's yeah. Or yeah.
In a way, I don't know, I feel also, since the whole festival is called Phantom Homeland, also for me, though I'm talking about exceeding borders and maybe also within the body, as how Shumona is dealing with as the first landing point, so to say, but also the landing point of maybe division. I also feel it's a very, sometimes, let's say, easy and comforting way to have this phantom of, like, let's say, belonging or a reference, how we can name it there. And this is also a question I'm in a way always questioning myself, since it's the way how I'm used to, or I think how knowledge is being, also how I've been approaching knowledge, and how it always has like a big reference and it lands back there, and there is a place, so to say, and it's difficult to escape, let's say, this phantom. I have sometimes the feeling also within the piece to also, let's say, for example, with identities, that they can be comforting and also like empowering, but also in a way it's been not a trap, I would say, but it's also, of course, again, a limitation, which is then put into words.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
What you just said, it's there's so many things I would love to say, because it really, what you just said, they really make echoes to what I try to do in my books, in my novels. First of all, for me, identity, it's a constant process. It's not a fixed, defined, you understand, idea. And it's like a Sartrean concept, like état naissant, is constantly going on, constructing. And second of all, it's obviously composite. There is no such a kind of monolithic, one-dimensional given identity. It's individually and collectively we have composite in construction identity. So in that sense, I consider myself of multiple identities. I don't have just one identity. And secondly, what you just said, that about the land, phantom land, I'll talk about land. It's the thing I say about myself, that I don't have France or India as my homeland anymore. India is not anymore my homeland, home country, homeland. And France will never be perfectly. So what is my homeland if I really need a land to land for the landing? It's the French language. It's abstract it's like a chateau dans l'air. It's a castle in the air. So yeah, it's comforting and it's stimulating. It can be menacing because you really don't feel it physically. It's conceptual. So yeah, these concepts are, I think, the way we think of our land, we are formatted by our society to have just one identity of just one landing, that where we are coming from, where do you belong to. The thing is that where we're going to, it's maybe more important, and where we're going to, it's an open end, it's an infinite horizon, and there is no such way to define yourself or ourselves as just one dimensional identity. And just to, I prefer myself not to say that where I'm coming from, where I belong to, but rather to where I'm going to in going forward. So what we just said, these are the concept, very artistical and intellectual way we can express it. But in real life, because my novels are very realistic or neo-realistic, like there is a hyper realism in my novels. So these things, what we are discussing in a very artistical, intellectual way or with words, in real life, these things are happening in a very violent frontal way. You know what I mean? Because there is a language of the artist and intellectual, and there is the language, prevailing language of the society. So there is also a very conflictual relationship between the, as an artist, and the society. Also, I feel there is a conflictual relationship, because there is a problem of the language. We don't speak the same language. We have the same alphabets, but we don't speak in the same language. So I think it's a constant process of, dialogue, trying to have a dialogue between you and the society.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I agree. Also, what I found interesting, in a way, how I also see it when I do performances, it's a little, or when I make performances, it's a little bit like, okay, there is something assembled, and how to disassemble and reassemble it, and not maybe be stuck in a essentialistic way of the essence of how it's also being portrayed. And this essence can for times also, as I said, I think comforting and empowering, but also then how you said, multiple identities, how to renegotiate, no, and also keep always moving. And I also work a lot with stereotypes, for example, and for me they're also in a way one-dimensional, because one thing is being like massively big, and that's only what it is about, and there is not the complexity in a way also in this Lakme opera, which is again for me a very sexist and racist depiction of, in this case, an Indian woman, and that is quite conflicting also, although she's been a goddess, you know, of different in a culture of different religions also, and then is being put down and is committing, like, is yielding to this white man again in a way. And yeah, I think it's very interesting how to deal with these conflict zones. And yesterday when I watched this performance and the talk afterwards, I think the artist's name was Jun Yang. He talked about how he can't be Japanese, but his children are, and how to not look in a lineage of like always where your parents come from, especially if you're, for example, a person of color in a white society, but also why it can't be that the children make so to say you Japanese, you know, like the father Japanese, and not to look in the other way around. I don't know what you think, Ian.
Yeah, there is two
Or...
things I would like to say. I will start with the last one maybe, because you know, in my books and or in general, I try to say, let's not say people of color, because everybody has a color, you know, because others are not transparent. So if you want to speak of colors, let's say, okay, dark colored, you know, half dark colored. Just let's say it what you want to mean. So yeah, this is one thing, just a small comment, you know.
Yes.
And the other thing is that, you know, as I come from India, it's let's say there is so many religions in India. You know, there is Hindus, there's Muslims, there's Buddhists, there's Sikhs and Christians, there is atheists like me. There is so many people. So there is also some kind of you know, cliche that Indians must be Hindus and their gods and goddesses. And I don't want to be too political. I have to control myself so that I don't give you a very political discourse today. But there is a real danger of the fanatical religiousness in India, Hinduism. You know, they're trying to emerging India as a Hindu nationalist supremacist country. And there's also, you know, what is funny, this is also post-colonial complex among Indians, and they are trying to have Aryan better race, Aryan children with Hindu very fanatical religious Hindu rituals. They are proposing to have Aryan kids, like white skin, tall and blue eyes and all. And so that's the very folkloric part. But there's a real danger of India as an anti-democratic and you know, censorship about in every sense, like in press, like in media, like in schools. So it's a huge country with such a huge population, India. So if you think of it, if you follow the current political situation in India, you will find it that it's a real danger for the democracy or the democratic world. So that's also it comes in my books also, where I try to, you know, depict India of today and not of the cliches. So I think there is this can be a beginning of a dialogue, you know, that how India is perceived by the others, and how we Indians, which are suffocating of this, not only from the cliches of the others, but also Indians who are supremacist, Indians who are post-colonial complex, who are trying to be white in that sense, and who are trying to dominate other Indian people, anti-democratic, fanatic, fascist way. So these are the very strong words. I know what I'm using as words, but these are the real danger, and it can be a beginning of a dialogue for their, you know, to know India better in a different way, at least. Yeah. Ilan would like to say something, I think.
I was just wondering, yeah, about your perspective. Yeah, talking also, hearing you talk about your perspective also on India, and or kind of yeah, what you were saying before, that you that your kind of you home is kind of the French language, or that's kind of what you
Yeah.
define as your home now.
Yes. Yes.
Was this like a decision you made at some point, or is this a kind of realization that you
Realization. It became like
had?
it becomes that way. Maybe Hyunsin also can say how artistical language has become her language, and it's her place of landing. It's her homeland finally, and not Berlin, not something else, some other country. It, you know, after 20 years of living in France, I have felt that I cannot define myself as an Indian, and I cannot define myself as a French, and I don't want to define myself. I don't want to. People are always ask me some lots of time, at least ask me, are you still Indian, are you French? How? There is no percentage. People, we are human beings. There is not a chemical laboratory that you can define the percentage, you can measure the percentage of your Indianness or Frenchness. So I find it pointless. It's something going on in your body, how you're becoming other, how you are becoming strange to yourself, and how you're coping with your strangeness between yourself. And so what is, as Yunshin said, comforting and stimulating, empowering, that is, you have a third land which you create with your language, with your words, with your artistic and literary creation, and that's the place you are landing there. So yeah, it wasn't a decision, it just happened that way, that after a few years I have realized that this is it, this is the place I am landing. Yeah. So I would like to ask you, Vincent, and you both, yeah, please, sorry. I would like to ask you, as a German, you know, as a Hyunsin and me, we have criterias like woman, not white, coming from different place and living in a Western country. Do you, as a male, white, living in Germany, do you have this kind of, I won't say identity crisis, but questions that where you are coming from, where you are landing? Do you have this quest of journeys inside you? Do you think that way?
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I'm not. It's maybe inside. I don't know where I come from. I kind of. I was wondering if this is also kind of why I or I mean, not wondering, I've kind of found out in the process of research for this feature-length film that I talked about it before in the recording, that kind of or kind of figuring out how much living in a getting access to the internet was kind of forming for me, because kind of yeah, I grew up in a village and I didn't really feel connection to anyone around in my immediate surrounding. So it kind of suddenly kind of through the internet realized that there are people who I can have a yeah, connection with, or kind of really have like a yeah, who kind of are just completely different to anyone around where I was living at the time. That felt kind of very limiting to me at that moment. So I kind of realized that, yeah, that this was also kind of a reason why I kind of suddenly, yeah, kind of was started to, yeah, it was kind of just a very forming or defining time for me. And then, yeah, kind of, it's also kind of, I think, attached to maybe somehow that attached to kind of a feeling of home, because it's kind of part of my biography or memory, kind of. But it's nowhere actually. I mean, it's so this is kind of this looking for the physicality, or these cables is just an attempt. But of course, it's kind of yeah. But so I mean, this is kind of one aspect that kind of just thinking about kind of. But if it's, of course, it's not something that's yeah. I mean, I like just thinking about feeling of where I'm home. This is kind of one aspect out of many that kind of makes it very hard to me to define where my home is, for instance.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
I find it also interesting how, I don't know, like it was 2 years ago also, where I was participating at the Maxim Gorki's Herbstsalon, a theater where they used dehymatize it, and then this Heimat, this homeland, so to say, how it became so important only in recent decades, or not decades, but centuries, how it became like such a fetish in a way, and how the word is being used. And this also made me rethink of all the journeys I've been renegotiating, I guess also as an artist, but also as an individual with complex feelings, with, for example, geographic boundaries, and me being trapped there in a way, or being seen as belonging to one part or the other. I found that a little bit liberating, that because also Heimat, this word in German, and homeland is kind of so big, but in a way, of course, it's also a construct, not to demean it, but it's a construct, and it's a trend, let's say it's a trend which has been being obsessed for a reason, I have the feeling. So I found that also a little bit liberating, to think about this a little bit, and then also to renegotiate within. And I also find it interesting that you now look through the language in a way and feel there as a home. And this has been also quite a very nice trigger for me.
Yeah, with the language, I kind of it's interesting, because it is, I mean, of course, again, limiting somehow, but I was thinking, is it, it's more kind of the language you create with these tools, kind of. And
exactly. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And also think of it not as something rigid, no? In all of the cases, like with a landing point which will be always there, or something which we always had to, like in the tunnel, which seems for me a little bit like, Ian, in your work, going one way, because I don't actually get to hear so much about the other side where they're going. And from that side, but only from one way, and it's not one way, it's multiple ways. And it's kind of how we deal with them, how in this multiplicity we move along, so to say. But often it's like this, and it seems it's not changing, but actually it's not a rigid form, and it has been very much, of course, constructed for a reason. So yeah.
Both Jan and Hushena, listening to you, I'm just wondering that this discussions, our talk, and this is also like a feedback of what you do, right? And some way, I would say something maybe absurd, like me and Hunshin were kind of privileged in a way that we are facing so many questions about identities and how we integrate to the Western world, and as a woman, as a non-white, and somehow these has become very stimulating elements of triggering points of our work itself. Somehow we have transformed it from something very negative and accusing kind of elements that we are facing. We have used it, they have become the basis of our work. Somehow we have transformed in that way. And listening to you, Jan, um, I'm thinking that somehow being male, white, living in Western country, and somehow uh, as you don't, or rather face less this kind of questioning, interrogating about your identity, supposing that you don't have any identity questions or interrogations, somehow it can be it can be a limitation. You know what? I don't think that I'm being very clear, but I'm trying to say, which is as if for you it's given that you don't have any identity uh, crisis or interrogation. But as we listen to you, we find that every human being, as a human being, social being, or as an artist, she has his own identity interrogation. As you talk about your rural context, and that you are trying to communicate, find a way through the internet, your way of expression. So it's every single path is such a singular way that you try to define, and it's never a given concept, defined concept, and it's in a constant process of construction. So that's very interesting, I think, when I listen to you in your work and the way you are saying it.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, it's because always different process that starts from within, or a process that's projected on you and kind of,
Yes,
or like reacting to a projection.
exactly.
Um, or it's kind of, I mean, this is kind of like something um, I've been thinking when in the last hour, kind of this kind of yeah, this the outside and some what comes from inside, and yeah, placed into a yeah, being placed into a geography maybe, or kind of placing yourself into to space. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. I think we're soon approaching our time, right? Is there
Yeah.
maybe something we want to discuss further?
um, I think um, I think I would like to watch the whole thing a little bit, the visually, how it all worked out together, all three of us. I'd like to watch that. So,
Well,
yeah.
so let me maybe just say thank you for this brilliant conversation between the three of you, and also the contributions, the artistical contributions we saw in the beginning, which I think were an excellent base to see how on the one hand you work in a very different way, of course, aesthetically, and also on different topics, and on the other way, this topic of geography in a way, yeah, combines or connects the different approaches and aesthetics